Indonesia, we are all maritime countries, right? So when you talk about the problem of plastic pollution, we all face it. When you talk about the problem of sea level rise, we are all susceptible to it. We are very vulnerable, right, to climate change. And at the same time, if you look even at biodiversity, not many people realize that Malaysia is among 17 countries that have a mega diverse. We are one of the 17 mega diverse countries. That means we have very rich flora and fauna. And the other countries are the US, Brazil, China, India, Australia, South Africa, which are huge countries, Russia. But Malaysia is a small country, we are mega diverse. But so is Indonesia, and so is Thailand, and so is Philippines. So if we work together, right, we are, as a region, we are also providing a huge ecological service to the world by being a huge carbon sink through our forests. And we always get lectured by the world about not doing enough, but they tend to forget that they have deforested for 200 years. They were even partly responsible for our deforestation. So we accept climate change, we want to put a stop to all that, but we need more support. But if we work together with ASEAN, we can have a common voice as mega diverse developing countries to get the developed world to do more, right, to assist us. Things like carbon credits, we can have common standards. There's a lot of bottleneck, a long time now. If you want to, today we are putting our first ever Malaysian carbon credit on auction from the common forest in Sabah. But the time to do that, to get the process, to go through the process was very, very long through the international certification standards. If we can have our own standards like Thailand, but make it credible and go to the world with that, with our scale, I think we will be able to unlock a lot of value with those sort of measures.
I'll be opening questions from the floor. I will accept any question if you have any later on. But before that, Yang Roman, I'm quite glad to hear that you mentioned about the initiative, especially on the carbon credit and carbon trading. And of course, Selangor also is thinking of in a similar line to basically put whatever asset that we have in terms of our forest to make it how we can basically use this forest for carbon trading for Well, and you mentioned also about the country that will have the ASEAN for next year. So if I may ask, what's the level of readiness of Malaysia to have the ASEAN next year, and particularly your ministry when come? How do you see that the level of readiness of what we can show to the ASEAN, our effort for our initiative when it comes to the climate change?
Well, I think we are very fortunate that when ASEAN is coming now, we have a Prime Minister that has enormous energy and is recognized throughout the world. Many people may not realize this, but we are among the success stories in terms of investments in ASEAN this year, because we've done many new policies like the retargeting of subsidies, our climate goals, how we are getting a lot more investments coming in, so on and so forth. So I think but not just that, but also outside economics itself, Malaysia now is being respected as a voice for the developing world, right? And we can speak at the highest levels. It's back like what we were in the 90s and 1980s. So I think that's why to me next year is it comes at a critical juncture, and we must leverage on this. So we've been reaching out. This year I put a lot of focus to meeting my ASEAN counterparts. I've met my Indonesian counterpart, my Thai counterpart, Singapore counterpart, and we will go on doing this deliberation so that we also get their input about what they think we should do when we take over as chair of ASEAN. And I think, overall, there's a lot of optimism of what can be done. And I think, as far as what we are thinking, PM has been sharing series of meetings about our ASEAN agenda. And the message is very clear that we must not miss this opportunity of ASEAN. Again, going back to that example, that comparison, when we are chair of ASEAN, the world looks at us as being the voice of 670 million people. It's a very different environment when the world looks at us as the voice of 35 million people, right? So I think we must make full use of 2025 to get our voice heard. Things like, I know when you talk about the environment, the transboundary haze, plastic pollution, these are things that we have to work on so that we can hopefully have, we can see more positive changes in ASEAN with regard to those policies.
Any question from the floor, if any? Do you have any question? Please. Please introduce yourself and the organization you come from and your question. Go ahead.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Wendy. My name is Hafizi. I work for a government advisory firm, counselor. First of all, I would like to congratulate you and your leadership for advocating for environmental sustainability on behalf of the government of Malaysia, especially at international level. I think that's very commendable. Secondly, this might not be directly related to your field, but I would just like to ask in the context of data center investments, because this kind of investments are energy intensive. They use a lot of electricity, a lot of water, and we're already looking at a situation in Penang where you don't have enough water, but already there are so many MN6 operating there at full scale, and without Perak coming in to save them, they might not even have water for the residents living in Penang, right? And the same situation might happen in Johor in 10 years to come, even though they have enough water in 5 years. But in 10 years and beyond, that could be a similar problem to what Penang is experiencing. So I would just like to ask, are we looking at something like a data center regulation or policy so that we have a federal approach to make sure that all data center investments are pegged at a benchmark that's sustainable and would also be able to alert relevant authorities when we are reaching a threshold when we can't accept any more data center investments because we don't have the capacity to actually be doing that. I would just like to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and I think we do recognize that we have to be more selective with data center investments, and I think that even Tengku Zafrul has, announced that we need to look at it more carefully. Things like if there's more value add, like where there's more AI, or certain aspects of it that we want to learn from and all that, then that will be useful, right? But if it's just a mere data center, then it may not be the best investment at all times, right? So depend on the circumstances. Overall, I think the government, to the credit of MITI, and I think that's been why it makes my job easier, because MITI also understands, if you look at the new industrial master plan and all that, the issue of sustainability, issue of climate change is built in to that plan. So as a result, if you look at certain heavy industries, hard to abate industries, MITI has put a stop to new licenses being issued simply because of that. When they know that there's too much emissions or too much water needed, then they put a stop because it's not worth it. But two, and that's why I say making that transition from being a low value, low cost, labor intensive industry economy to move towards something that's greener but also of higher value. The second part that I think is crucial is that we have also started to do the retargeting of subsidies. That's the most difficult part. I had to do this 2 weeks in my job. I can't even understand all the terms and phrases of ICPT and all those things, and then I went in front of the press to announce the increase, right? Fortunately, I have good people in my ministry. But when we started doing that, and now then we did diesel, again, some people were very scared. You know, some were saying, can't we wait until we win 2 elections first before doing this? But you know, we have no time. You know, we have to take action now. And I think as a result of all these changes, also water tariffs, Selangor is still quite okay. There were other states that did not increase their water tariffs for 40 years. So finally we did that. That was my last job before I handed it over to Datuk Sri Fadila, right? So I didn't have to face the criticisms. But the serious point is that once you set the right market signals, then you get the high quality investments. Previously, because everything is blanket subsidy for industries and whatnot, no one bothered about energy efficiency. No one bothered about solar. So when you have the right pricing, people will start to think about it, and we can start. One of the reasons, maybe last time data centers were looking at Malaysia because everything was super cheap. But now we are not, we shouldn't be competing on cheapness alone. Right? We should be moving on to what we can offer in terms of technology, in terms of green policy, so on and so forth. So that's how we are approaching things, and I totally agree that we need to be more selective with the data centers that we are approving.
Any more questions? Well, coming back, Muhammad, as you were all states, including Selangor in particular, has been focusing on sustainable development to attract investments and promote economic growth, and focusing on diverse green technologies, as mentioned, such as solar power, the mini hydro plants, hydrogen technology, introduction, and of course clean energy is becoming an effective investment and advances innovation. And at the same time ensuring the energy accessibility and affordability, reliability and resilience at the same time. And therefore, Selangor State, we have determined to develop our roadmap for sustainable and greener agenda. And this initiative aligns with Malaysia's commitment to a sustainable future, contributing significantly to the nationwide renewable energy targets. And the emphasis on green technology reflects Selangor's dedication to environmental stewardship and innovation in the energy sector. However, I just want to get your view, what are the key investments opportunities in Malaysia's transition to sustainable development?
Thank you. I think if we want to talk about the key investment opportunities for our transition, the first and foremost I think is clean energy, right? Because right now, as I mentioned, 25% capacity is currently green. We are targeting 70% by 2050. At this moment, in actual production, about 80% of our energy still comes from fossil fuel. Coal, we've made an announcement of no new coal plants, so it will slowly be expiring, but we also have natural gas. And the problem with natural gas is that we are at times a net exporter of natural gas, but the moment we are stopping new approvals of coal, we'll be more and more reliant on S4 baseload, right? Because solar is still not baseload right now. So to provide that baseload energy, we still need gas, and we will be importing, and that will be a huge cost. So this is where we need people to come in and invest. We want solar with battery, for example, because that will provide more stable, renewable energy. This is controversial, but the government is looking at nuclear, because we're all said and done, nuclear is still the best zero emission form of energy. But we need to do a proper research and study to see how we can do it sustainably, right? Then, or mini hydro and all those things, right? So there's a lot of things, even biomass. A lot of our biomass produced from our palm oil plantations and whatnot are exported to Japan, to Korea, because the prices there are better. So we are not utilizing our own biomass. So energy is a big part. But another part is mobility. And I think I commend Selangor, because I think Selangor, even during when I was still serving in the Selangor state government, we started with the free bus, or the bus services at every municipal council. Because you already have a good rail network, you just need to provide the last mile. And then now you are doing the DRT, the mobility programs. Investing in I think that the federal government is also looking at how we can really unlock the potential of micro mobility, i.e. the scooters and everything, because that is really the key, to take people away from the cars. But where we still need cars, we want to do EVs, right, or low carbon transportation. So that is another thing where Malaysia has a strong basic industry of for cars, automotive industry, including in Selangor. But previously it was very old school, internal combustion, as well as not the electronic intensive cars that you have today. So we need to make that transition. Some of the foreign brands are already assembling EVs in Malaysia. So I think MITI has already said that they are only allowing the ban for imported EVs below 100,000 ringgit until 2025. What does that mean? Because a lot of the brands, especially from China, they can sell it way below that. So Proton and Produa have these 2 years to figure out how they want to compete. After that, it will be a free market. And I think that will be a game changer. When the government also retargets the RON 95 subsidy, that will be the other game changer. And I think people who want to invest in charging stations, invest in the whole infra, this is the time to come in. So I think those are the two main parts of where investments should come in, but also adaptation solutions. At the end of the day, so much of this is now the burden falls under government, but the government cannot be doing this all the time with our limited budgets. If there's blended finance, then I think there's a better way for us to look at the solutions as we embark on the transition.
And of course, when government plans to manage the transition, we probably will foresee some disruption, probably minimal disruption or some effect. For example, in the context of the workforce, probably there will be effect to the workforce, to the people who are in the industry when the government change into the new energy transition. So how do you see that government can do what was the best model to ensure the minimal disruption, and also how do we basically get the maximum benefit out of this transition?
Thank you. Yeah, and I think this is very crucial. A lot of good measures, good intentions when it comes to environmental policies, climate policies, if not done well, you can face a huge backlash. I think we saw that with the Yellow Vest movement. I can't pronounce the French when they had some protests over the fuel duty program there. Similarly, I think in London, ultra low emission zone, there was a lot of concern that a lot of people, would do so. But a lot of it is only perception, right? So that is where communication and engagement is key. When we talk about our retargeting of subsidies for electricity, if you talk about households, it's only the top 15%. If your electricity bills were above 600 ringgit, then you are affected. If you are below the 85%, then you are not affected. You might see some increase, it's because you're using more aircons because it's hotter. Right? It's nothing to do with the tariff. Tariff is the same. But if your house has 7 aircons or a swimming pool, then most likely you fall under the top 15% and you do face that tariff increase. Similarly, when it comes to diesel, during our recent policy, in one form or another, 80% of Malaysians in the peninsula who were affected by the retargeting receive back the subsidies, whether it's directly or indirectly. 80%. We covered the logistics, we covered the agriculture, we covered the fishermen. So, in fact, we used to spend, using the same estimate, we used to spend 14 billion ringgit last year for diesel subsidies. As a result of the retargeting, we are targeting to spend 10 billion on subsidies. That means we are still spending 10 billion in subsidies. It's just that we are saving 4 billion ringgit. We are not going for a big bang approach where everything is put to market price. No, because we know that for the bulk of Malaysians who are earning ordinary wages, that would be too painful, then that would be too sudden. So we understand that, we have to make it carefully, easier said than done, but I think that is how we are trying to do it with minimal disruption, as possible. But that is why the communication and engagement, which I think sometimes government needs to be better, is very, very crucial so that people understand. Sometimes they are not even part of the affected party. I think there was a viral video on TikTok on someone on a motorbike claiming that his fuel prices have increased when his motorbike is not diesel. There's no motorbike in Malaysia that is diesel. So that's the thing that we have to address, to win people over and to show that we need to do this.
See, we know that recently, starting from July, that Sarawak now under the state company Petros has embarked into the gas aggregator. How do you see that the possibility, or probably in the future, for example, the other state maybe like Selangor, that can embark into this green energy aggregated program that can basically benefit the state government, other than that? How do you see this opportunity?
Well, I think in the beginning we know that because of the formation of Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak have certain unique powers that are not enjoyed by other states in Malaysia, right? But obviously, I think things are very dynamic. I think it's very different from the 1970s, 1980s, when one party has 2/3, every chief minister comes from the same party. So you won't see that competition, that competitiveness. To me, this is healthy, where you have a federation and you have different states trying to do their thing within the framework of the federation, and to show that who can do it best. Because I think there's always opportunity. At the end of the day, coming from someone who used to serve in Selangor and now being in Putrajaya, even though Selangor is very near, Putrajaya cannot do everything in Selangor. And we do not know everything in Selangor, right? So I think that KL knows best, or Putrajaya knows best, approach no longer apply. So whenever, but it's a dynamic thing as things develop. Maybe certain things will, Selangor will be able to do certain things and whatnot. We can speculate. But overall, I think, we just have to be confident and not defensive of the changes, because I think if we can unleash that dynamism, then at the end of the day, the people, the rakyat will benefit. And any other person, my relatives in Kelantan can come to Selangor to learn. I have friends in Perak or whatever. So that sort of approach, I think, is more productive. The approach of what we did in one size fits all in the past can no longer apply today.
What actions would you like to see from the businesses and individuals to support Malaysia and ASEAN sustainability goals and ensure a greener future for all?
Well, first and foremost, I would say we understand that it can be a bit challenging. I really focused on this issue only when I became minister, and it took me a while to get used to the jargons, to the language, to everything. So I would think that I understand, especially for SME, most SMEs, I assume, do not have a chief sustainability officer. There are many programs offered by banks, by institutions now to address the sustainability issue. Try to understand that. But do not see this merely as a marketing thing. That's another danger. You have to know that this is existential, because you are making money from the planet. If there's no planet, you're not going to make money. Or rather, there's no people, the planet might be around. If there's no people, you're not going to make money. So if you understand that bottom line, you won't be part of a greenwashing exercise. Because one, your consumers will see through you if you greenwash. Two, is that when you want to recruit workers today, I'm from the older generation, where people wanted higher pay, people wanted a stable job, right? But today's generation, they are willing to take a lower pay, but they want to see a sustainable employer, right? So you have to, also for the markets, people who want to buy the products, they're willing to pay a bit more if you show that you're doing something right. And it's a journey, obviously. No one is perfect. You can't say zero emissions and all that. But it's a journey and what's your target and what you're trying to do. So I think that is an important part. But it does open a whole new range of economic opportunities. It does. Because, well, if you're going to sell abroad, you're going to sell to Europe and all that, if you don't comply, you can't. If you're supplying to a Malaysian company that supplies to Europe, they will also not be buying from you eventually. So you need to be able to address that. And finally, I think how the company should benefit, my message is talk to your peers in ASEAN. Again, because we are in similar situations, similar economic development, similar environment. Sometimes it's easier to talk to peers in ASEAN. We tend to, because we are very English speaking, we tend to look at the English speaking world and think that all the solutions are there, where a lot of the solutions can be near here in ASEAN or in Japan or in other parts of the world. And I think leverage on that and see how we can improve to be part of the sustainability journey.
Looking into a more global picture, how do you see that Malaysia can, position ourselves when it comes to this new energy vis-a-vis of the challenges of the issue of how China, for example, will greatly do more into this, probably vis-a-vis of the situation of the geopolitical effect, for example, US, and also in the Europe and Ukrainian war, for example. How do you see that the future of this can actually impact or benefit Malaysia?
Well, I think Malaysia has always taken a very neutral and open approach. For us, we want to trade. We are, again, we are a small country. We want to trade with everyone. We want to talk to everyone. And I know that some of the geopolitical tensions have benefited us in a way because some factories have located here. But I think beyond that, right, we don't want to lose, both China and the US are our two biggest trading partners. We want to be able to trade with both. We have a huge English-speaking workforce. We also have a huge Mandarin-speaking workforce. Right? I think this is a unique position that not many countries. I mean, Singapore can talk about it, but they're smaller. Right? Malaysia has a bigger scale. So I think we want to be able to continue to do this. We just have to play that balancing game. I think that we've had from the beginning. We were the first country in Southeast Asia to start diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China. So we had that courage, right? So I think that's why for us, we will continue to pursue an independent approach. We are appreciative of our partners from the West, but we are also appreciative of our partners from China. And I think if we close even one, as an open trading economy, small economy, we don't have a huge domestic market, we will lose out. So we will try our best to be able to access both.
Yeah, before we come to the end, maybe we can have another question from you.
Yeah. Can I ask?
And then you, yeah?
Yes, good evening, Boy. My question is, Joseph, my question is, Malaysia is joining BRICS. How will it impact ASEAN members of Singapore and Philippines who are very much unlikely to be part of BRICS? How will be our trading factor with the US in this regard? Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I said it goes back to our position of being open, an open economy. Singapore, Philippines, they also have diplomatic relations with countries that we do not have diplomatic relations. And we respect that because that's their policy. So similarly, this decision for us with regards to BRICS is our decision. to maintain that openness, that neutral approach. We also have a five-power defense alliance that's with UK, Australia, Singapore, right? So we will continue to engage with different blocks that we think is useful. We have to be quite pragmatic with regards to that, again, to see how we can maintain our independent diplomatic position globally.
Please. Yeah.
My name is Captain Ko. I do a lot of businesses and investment in China. This question is from my partners in China, thinking of investing in Malaysia, specifically in data centers. But what has happened now is when they want to go into tier 3 and tier 4, there is the redundancy power that's required, and that's insufficient of it. So basically in China, if you're talking about transition, power transition, energy transition, they have focused a lot on LNG. There are lots of LNG terminals they set up and all that because it's abundant of it. So in Malaysia, we are talking about, I think there is this third-party access. Yeah. So currently it's 80-20. We are just thinking if we can open up it much more so that we can develop this small-scale LNG business for the SMEs and so forth. Currently it's sitting at 80-20. Can we look at possibility? Is there a policy that will increase it to 50-50 so that the whole the alternative source of energy that can come online very quickly? I'll give you an example. We work with a company called Nine Dragon, the biggest pulp industry. We are already supplying about quite a lot of LNG for Bulgaria, and I like to see that possibility that we can provide that sort of energy, transition energy to all the other data centers without tapping into the main requirements from TNB, which is very short. So can you comment on that? Would there be a policy? That's something that we can also develop on? And the other thing that they were suggesting, will the government of Malaysia consider of setting up a small-scale LNG exchange so that the buyers and the sellers can go into it and buy rather than wait for 3-4 months before a contract can be done? Have you had any of these proposals sent to you? If so, is there any possibility of us working together?
Just to be clear, oil and gas is technically outside my purview, but I'll give you a general answer. In that one, we recognize that we need to do more to make the third-party access for LNG to work. One of the hurdles now, for example, is that, there's a lot of constraints, but one of it, for example, Petronas is also obliged to sell gas or LNG to IPPs at a certain price, right? And that's lost revenue for Petronas. Of course, that allows our gas power plants to be operating at a more affordable rate, right? But so I think there's discussions to look because a lot of the agreements are coming to an end, so that moving forward there will be a much more competitive rates. So this will allow the whole ecosystem to be a bit more competitive and liberalized as opposed to what we have today, right? So that is the general answer. The details are already, that is under the Ministry of Economy, and you can check with them. But the discussions are there, and we are aware that we need to do more to truly strengthen, to make the third-party access meaningful.
What about the exchange?
Same answer. I have to go back to my cabinet colleague because that one I have no what do you call that visibility over that issue.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Maybe one last question. Maybe one or two last questions. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Amelia, and I work for Vrians and Partners. We are a Southeast Asian government affairs consultancy working with MNCs in tech, healthcare, tourism, and more. So I have two questions. I'll make it quick. So the first one is, what are the key challenges of drafting the climate change bill, especially with state governments such as Sabah and Sarawak? And the second question is, can you share the current progress on the national plastic policy? Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think it's not just Sabah and Sarawak, to be fair, because when you look at climate change, a lot of the carbon sinks, we have rich carbon sinks in Malaysia, the forests and whatnot, they are all under the states, right? So, but first our approach is, and every state government, including Sabah and Sarawak, they accept the position that the national focal point is the ministry, NRES, and we are the ones responsible in the sense that because we go to the UNFCCC, and you know that it is called a nationally determined contribution, national, right? So, with regards to any international treaties and whatnot, the federal government is responsible through our ministry with regards to climate change. But of course, we need to get them involved. We need to work within, get the legislation and all that. Sarawak is quite advanced with what they're doing. So we want to bring it all together in line so that it can meet our national objectives. In fact, we also went to look at their legislation and see what we can learn as well, right? So I don't think it's a major, I mean, obviously we have to work through the state governments, whether it's Sabah, Sarawak or the Peninsula. So there's no issue of something being more challenging than the other. All of them are challenging. I suppose, as with regards to the national plastic policy, I've had a series of discussions. We have two major roadmaps. One is the Malaysian Plastic Sustainability Roadmap, 2021-2030, and we also have the Malaysian Roadmap towards zero single-use plastics. So I think the challenge has been that one is that it actually involves central cooperation between two key ministries, the local government ministry and my ministry, because waste is under them. And I think the major challenge we have in Malaysia so far, the lack of enforcement for separation at source, right? So a lot of the problems that we face really is this then makes the recycling industry also difficult. We also then, as a result, some of these recyclers, they import legally or illegally plastic from overseas, dirty plastics or low quality plastics. So this whole thing is what we're trying to work on, and as a result, I'm going to have a steering committee between KPKT, Local Government Ministry, and my ministry in order for us to address this in a holistic manner. We have to work towards zero single-use plastics, but where we also know that plastic is still very prevalent, then we have to work towards the sustainability part of the industry. And we are also looking at it to be in line with the soon-to-be signed Global Plastic Treaty. Yeah, so those two parts, yes.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Wan Asmadi Wandau. I'm from Muncul Prima Resources. I just want to have a very short question. What is the national policy on carbon trading? Because I have come across to me the knowledge there are a few states has been working with a few companies, including us, for the carbon credit program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So we are working on a national carbon credit framework, national carbon market framework. Today, I mean, as again, I think I mentioned just now, we have our first Malaysian carbon credit with auction, the Kuamut Forest Project in Sabah at the Bursa Carbon Exchange. And I think the major focus for us is to be able to see whether we can develop a domestic standard as well. Like in Thailand, the Thailand Voluntary Emission Reduction Scheme, they have a premium one, which is probably as closest to Vera and all that, but they also have a normal standard. So that one, for a lot of the SMEs and those who are trying to figure out a way what the carbon market is and what the carbon market is, they buy the normal TIVA. So we are trying to create a discussion within ASEAN to see that we can create a mutually recognized standard for carbon credits across the region. So that's basically the thing. I know that there's a lot of discussions our main agency that looks into this is the Malaysian Forest Fund, MFF. So I would advise that they've already reached out, I believe, to state governments for any parties to talk to them, because there's also a lot of not so credible people, they call it the carbon cowboys, who are going out and telling all sorts of beautiful stories, and you can make tons of money from carbon credit when that's not necessarily the case. So I think just revert to the MFF and see, and we'll be very, we'll try to accommodate and empower any state governments who want to do that.
Okay, one more question, maybe last question from
Assalamualaikum. My name is Azrina from Wallabies Berhad, a statement company. If it's the last question, I'd like to know about the government. Are you all working towards carbon tax for national sustainability agenda?
Well, again, if I want to push this away, this is under the Ministry of Finance. But seriously, the Ministry of Finance is already in discussion with World Bank. And we are also in the group because we provide the technical view for the carbon tax. So the discussions are already ongoing to see how viable it is. The initial thing why we could not do it earlier, definitely having a carbon tax will really spur our carbon market and all that. But the main inhibition was that we were basically subsidizing carbon, and we still are. But with blanket subsidies for electricity, which is 80% coal and gas, with blanket subsidies for petrol, with blanket subsidies for diesel before this, it meant that we were giving blanket subsidies to carbon. So to tax that doesn't add up. So we want to address that first before we look at the possibility of having carbon tax.
Thank you very much, and I think we have come to the end of our conversation session this afternoon, and I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to our esteemed Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability for sharing with us a lot of subjects from the government policy to the role of Asian as well as investments for sustainable development, and I think we have benefited from the conversation session this afternoon, and I pass back to Mr. MC for the program.
Right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause to Yang Muhammad Inas bin Ahmad, Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability, and also to Yang Muhammad Dr. Johari Anwar, Selangor Deputy State Secretary and the Director of the State Economic Planning Unit. Thank you. Thank you, Yang Muhammad Minister. I'd like to invite the Minister and all moderator, you may return to your seat. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for you to continue enjoying the refreshments. Please continue to mingle. We still have our networking session on the way until 7.